necessarily understand it. So when people look at our community to study it or visit it, particularly when they visit it, they can feel something. So there's something that they feel, there's a vibe that they can kind of pick up about what is different about this community. And they wonder, what is it? What motivates these people? How do they get so many people, working in so many diverse areas and accomplishing so many, great things? And again, it just comes from that inner experience of growth, of creating. So our organization, the one that I'm working for now, which is the Economic Development Association, we've rebranded, and we call it now Grow Fairfield. And it's because there really is generally so many different areas and ways that our community can expand and can grow. The focus is intended to be on business development, so we're working in a lot of different areas in that. We do work with entrepreneurs. In a little bit, I'll tell you about a weekly event that takes place for entrepreneurs, and possibly something that the class may want to visit at some point. We have so many different accomplishments of things that are bigger than you would find in other communities. When we were looking at our community from the point of view of changing and attracting new people to the community, retaining our young people who have grown up here or graduate from here, whether it's an outside school or whether it's from this institution, we looked at making the community appealing and attractive in as many ways as we can. So when we did work on recreational opportunities, we conceived and built a 16.5-mile loop trail around the city. I'm sure you've all been on a piece of that, but it's a great trail if you do bike to bike the entire trail. We have, and again, just staying with recreational activities, we recently built a new outdoor pool. We built a new indoor recreation center, which is at it's called the Cambridge Sportsplex. It's just heading west of town. Have any of you been to that facility? Okay, good. So if you haven't, go explore that. Go check that out. It's a really great facility. We have some great parks. We've continued to upgrade and add those different things. We have a skate park that we put $160,000 into developing. It was a California company that developed it on the south edge of town, called at the O.B. Nelson Park. And then when we looked at the creative culture for arts and entertainment, we built 15 years ago the Fairfield Arts and Convention Center. I assume you've all been inside of that. Have you seen any movies or performances in the theater? Yeah. That theater, when it was built, we had someone who was on the board of directors for it, who worked for a local company as a TV producer. And he studied musical theater under one of the most famous playwrights in Broadway's history. His name was Stephen Sondheim. And Stephen Sondheim agreed to allow his name to be associated with our theater. So it's referred to as the Stephen Sondheim Center for the Performing Arts. And he's since passed away just a few years ago. He was from New York, and he has a theater named after him in New York, London, and Fairfield. And on opening night, we had 8 actors and actresses who had all performed on Broadway in one of his plays over many years. I tell you this story because one of them just kind of stepped out of character at one point, went to the front of the stage and just said to the whole audience there, "Cherish this because this doesn't exist anywhere." So, this outside of the major cities, you won't find a theater this nice in a small rural community. So again, when we were going through that process of planning it, we were thinking big, we were thinking creatively, we were thinking that we can attract, the biggest names, the biggest stars, and that's just the way these kinds of projects are put together. Artists have such a great influence within this community. They were the basis for starting what we have every Friday, the first Friday of each month, called the First Friday's Art Walk. And just so many things like that we put together. My personal journey from a businessman, when I got involved in brokering fuels back in the early 1980s when I had come here, and we created a very successful company that had a good niche within this field within the Midwest and the upper Midwest. And in the early 1990s, somebody talked me into running for city council. So I, had never given anything like that a thought prior to that, didn't know what to think about, doing it or why. But the one thing I did know was that, for the university, is really, it's an extension of the college that was here before. Parsons College had been in Fairfield for 98 years. It was founded in 1875, so it goes almost back to the beginning of Fairfield, which was founded in 1839. So they had that almost 100-year history of being an a higher education town. And there is a sort of a quality that's kind of expected with that. When MIU, first came here, there was, appreciation because they were going to take over a campus which could have been split up into, 100 other things if another educational institution hadn't taken it over. But there was also skepticism. What is this? Meditation, and then 6 or 7 years later, yogic flying to create world peace. And so there were a lot of messages that really weren't resonating, as that easily with the town. And they also just wondered, because so many people, came either to the university or to become part of the meditating community that would practice twice a day in the domes and, start their businesses, whether it would last. People, they didn't have the sense of security that this was going to be something that we're going to fully transition into. It may be a phenomena that lasts a couple of decades and then everybody's gone. And honestly, I understood that. Even the town that I was from in New York was about 25,000, kind of considered a small town in that area, outside of New York City. I always said, if this happened in my hometown, it'd be the same reaction, maybe worse. you just don't know. So there was an understanding gap, and what I saw was the opportunity to serve on the city council and basically prove that everything that goes through city government can be important to me as a practicing meditator as it would be for anybody else. So that was my impetus to say, yeah, okay, I'll step in and do this. So I served for 8 years, and during that 8-year term, what I learned was that if we were going to complete that integration of the community in that way, so that people understand each other from two different cultures, just not that they're distinctly different cultures, it's just that as meditators we have different priorities in our lives, and some of those things are just misunderstood when they get out into the public. But I knew that had to be dealt with, that had to be healed in a way. And I also felt it personally for Maharishi, because he deserved to have an example of a successful community, a successful integrated community. The university was on a successful path anyway, but if it's misunderstood and not accepted within its own community, that message is going to get out there as well. So I want to be a part of helping to solve that. And I saw through my experience on the city council that that was needed to be a change of leadership, because the people who were at the top levels of leadership within the community were the ones that were actually using their office to suppress the integration and the rise of meditators and people into city government, civic organizations, those kinds of things. But I also knew enough of them and had enough, experiences where I saw the possibility of it happening, but I think I kind of felt at that time, it's going to need to be a meditator that would take that top position as mayor in order for that to happen and to be sure that everything is kind of balanced as we go through this. But I didn't think it needed to be me at the time. I just said, this sort of has to happen. So I just sat quietly with it and looked around for the other friends and leaders in the community and just realized, I think I'm the only one who's going to really step into this. So let's give it a go. And in 2001, I ran in 1997 and lost an election, a close one, and then ran again in 2001 and won. And then, I served for 18 years, and most elections was unopposed, because the very first thing that I did was I commissioned a group of people. I took 12 moderate local people, 12 moderate meditators, and put them all together to do a long-range strategic plan for the city. Look at all the different areas where we want to develop and grow. So everybody's ideas were on the table. So during that process, it took a long time. It took us a year to go through this process. We would take a full day. We had an outside facilitator, and all the ideas would be out, and then we'd agree, we'd move on, we'd develop the ideas a little bit more. At the end, we had a plan with 5 overarching goals, 70 different action items and objectives, and then we went out into the community and we got all of the different organizations to sign off on the plan. So there were 80 community organizations that said, yes, this is good, this is the direction we want to see the community go, and they signed off on it, approving it. Things like our trail, things like our convention center, things like improvements in the downtown, just as I say, 70 different kinds of objectives. And so that was the basis for going forward. That's where my leadership was going to attend to all of these ideas that we had collectively come up with. And that process played out to be successful. As the years went by, in those first, say, 6 years after the plan, we'd accomplished so many of those goals, and the community was transforming in such a fast way that everybody was really happy about, that we started to get noticed by other communities within the state, the governor, state agencies, and then we got contacted by the State Economic Development Agency to tell us about a nonprofit organization in Washington, D.C. that advocates for small towns and communities, that was looking for the most entrepreneurial city in America, under 10,000 population. So we wrote a kind of a grant narrative of what we had done in this community, and we won. We won that designation in 2003 as the most entrepreneurial city in America. That started to really draw a lot of people. We were getting faculty members, and did you have a question?
Yeah, just kind of touching on what you were saying.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just curious about, because I heard a while ago about the Wide articles referring to Fairfield as Silicon Valley. Was it around the same time? Maybe we'll get touched on that.
That came out. That's an interesting point. So that actually was earlier. That was actually in the late 1980s. And when we were attracting a lot of committed meditators and siddhas who wanted to be here, there were a number of people who were graduating with software degrees. So those were early adopters for something like that. And there were literally 20 different groups who had companies or ties to companies that they were doing development work for. So with 20 companies, they were probably 95% of the companies in the state of Iowa that were dealing with software development at the time. And that's when a journalist came and coined us Silicon Valley. Because of that. It was a great name, yeah, it really stuck. And that got the governor's attention at the time, and he called us a shooting star or superstar, something like that. But it was later that, we had so many successful stories and so many statistics to kind of back it up that, winning that award, I was flown out to Washington, D.C. to receive the award, and they did a second and a third place. And so third place went first and told their story, and second place, and there was very little that they really had, but it shows you that, what's been accomplished here is just, it's at another scale. It's just at another scale, two ways about it. Now, that's, again, what's happened in the last 10 years with this digital transformation, has kind of made it flat and more balanced a lot of different places, but still, we can always be, the home of, consciousness-based everything, and also, a low cost of living, high quality of life, creative, hub. And not everyone can market themselves at that, as that. So after that designation, the next one we got in 2006 was something called the Iowa Great Places. So there was a competition that the governor's office had announced for communities to kind of envision themselves diversifying economically, culturally, socially, and also, those, particularly those areas. And so you would apply, and we would get grant funding if we achieved it, and there were going to be 6 communities chosen in that year, and there were 132 cities in Iowa that had applied for it, and we were one of those that were chosen. So it was a new program, high profile, coming out of the governor's office. You're one of Iowa's great places, and once we had achieved that, that sense of collective pride really washed away a lot of that early stuff. Everybody said, no, this is good. This is good. Our neighbors and our partners that I may not understand all that well, they're part of our workforce. They're hiring, my children. This is all working better, and now we can boast this designation of an Iowa Great Place. And that just continued and continued and continued. So we're kind of still on that path in a lot of ways. But that was what I saw from a leader's point of view needed to take place, needed to happen. I had no clue that it would actually happen that way, but it feels, it does, it feels good. And, I get confirmation of that. I was at a church service on Saturday for my niece, and there were 2 older people in front of me, and after the service was over, they turned around to me and they just said, "We just want to say you did a great job when you were mayor." So it's been 4 years since that I've been out of office, but you can see that somebody really felt that strongly that they wanted to turn around and introduce themselves and say something. I always felt at that time too that I was doing it on behalf of everyone, and I think David understands what I'm saying there. But as a community, we all had that same identity and the same challenge. So I wanted to be that person that that they would say, no, they're good people because, and so it feels great to have that accomplished. This position that I'm in, I'll just give a little bit of a background on, and then we'll take some more questions. So the Economic Development Association has been around for about 40 years as well, and mostly, in communities like ours, having the zoning designation for manufacturing businesses is kind of critical, because a lot of a lot of towns and cities in the Midwest have that basis of manufacturing for the economy. And again, we have a great diversity of manufacturing. I mean, a lot of our manufacturers are agriculturally based, but we have a commercial laundry manufacturer that basically distributes all over the world. We have a company that called Trafix Devices. They make those traffic elements of plastic barrels and cones for construction areas. You see them all the time. So they have about 65% of the marketplace in the country. And then we've got a stained glass manufacturer and artisan who repairs it, and he was a graduate of MIU's art program, but it's a manufacturing-based company, just a diversity of those. So our organization generally would develop the land for these companies to grow their businesses. We also have done housing developments. We're working on another housing development on the south edge of town. And I recently went to the county assessor to look at the valuation of all of those different properties where we developed land and provided a place for all those to grow. And the total is $76 million in taxable valuation for the community that came through this development. Okay, so that's why organizations like ours will encourage that kind of growth and development, because it allows for that stronger, more resilient tax base, and the value of those businesses and homes are kind of the proof of that. Yes?
Is it the city of Fairfield, or is it usually the state level that offers tax increment financing for housing on the affordable level locally?
So it's local.
Okay.
Yeah. Essentially, but the law, it comes from the state level that allows the community to participate in this. So has anyone heard the term tax increment financing before? So let's explain what that is. Okay, so that's a program where there'll be money that'll either be rebated to a developer, or there'll be borrowing that'll be done to create something within a development that will be paid back with the new taxes that come from the development itself. Okay, so we've got a green piece of land. It's 20 acres. It's going to cost $3 million to put in streets and sewer and all of those different elements to it. So the city can borrow that $3 million on a special bond revenue and basically designate the collection of taxes on that over a period of time, say 10 to 15 years, to pay off that loan. And the term increment comes from the difference between where that land is taxed now and the new taxes that are gained from the good development. So when you build a building, each year that building is taxed on its value. So if something was generating $5,000 a year in taxes, and then once you start putting buildings on it, it's generating $1 million in taxes, that is what's going to paying off the loan. So, but it's a local program that's usually done. So anyway, I've kind of told parts of the Fairfield story, my journey as a leader and as a mayor, but would love to hear from you. Any questions that you have, anything at all? Yeah. Yes.
Where do you see this community in a decade or more?
So I'm going to start with the university because as chairman of the board of directors, we're looking at ways that we can really expand and grow the university. Right now, our largest growth is in the online It's obviously, it's a generational difference, and it's an opportunity for a lot of other people to, to take courses, and manage their lives so they can take them online. So there's a lot of growth going on in there, and will be more growth. But we still are going to continue to, to focus on on-campus students and attracting more on-campus students. You guys are really special in a way, because at some point in time, you made a decision that it's okay for me to choose this institution over something that would be more classical or traditional, right? I mean, everybody went through that, that decision-making process at some point. You had to take a little bit of a leap of faith, in a sense. Now, MIU graduates do really well in the workplace, because, first of all, I always explain to people that my own kids, when they were going to college and applying to colleges, and again, when you grow up in your hometown, you want to get out. So kids wanted to go out to go to school, but their MSAE diploma was something that stood out to basically college counselors that were looking for people to admit. And I think the same thing goes with an MIU degree also. I think an employer sees that there's somebody that's bold, that is thinking a little bit out of the box, has gotten the same quality of education that you might get from a state university or something like that, but they're also investing in someone there's something a little different about them. There's that element of consciousness that you emit that tells them that you are distinctive in a way. So the university's growth is a big part of it. And I would say, right now, we're at about 2,800 students across all sectors, graduate, undergraduate, online, and on campus. And I'd love to see that grow to, say, 4,000 or 4,500 with probably 2,000 students on campus. So I think that's a part of it. As far as, we're seeing our generation, okay, when we came here, we created a bubble in terms of the demographics of age, and that bubble is moving, through towards that upper end. And, who replaces us in positions or businesses, things like that. I'm encouraged by what I see. There are a lot of, young people who are in business here who were, and I would say the highest percentage of them were people who grew up here, and I would say mostly from the meditating community and families, but also from, the local community and families as well. So I would like to, I think that there's going to be more responsibility and ownership that's taken. So I think there'll be more, business development and business ideas. I mentioned to you that there's something that's being done on a weekly basis right now in town, and it's about an hour and 15-minute session for entrepreneurs to kind of pitch ideas, work ideas with good mentors, and it's referred to as Traction Thursday. And it's a Thursday meeting. It's from 11:45 to 12 and to 1, and it's open to anyone. It takes place where our offices are, which are downtown on the corner of Broadway and Court Street. There's an old brick bank building there. It has a curved front, and our sign out there, Grow Fairfield, is there. But just we have some great expertise in business planning, writing business plans. We have just good entrepreneurs who can kind of help vet an idea, and it's a great opportunity for networking. And one of the main focuses was as a group that's been working for a number of years on creating what they call a food web. So it's bringing together local growers, local producers of foods, and distributing and helping them get their products out. So there's a little bit of a lean and a focus on that, and really anything is open. So there's the woman who's the head of the Economic Development Association for the state is planning a visit here, and she's going to speak at one of these events. I'll see if I can get it. I don't have a date yet. If I do, I can shoot you a note, and
Nice, yeah.
that'd be nice to hear.
Even if they're not still in the class, I'll send it to them.
Yeah, good. That sounds good. So let's see, what else? I think one of the areas we're focusing on right now is housing, and we need new housing, we need new apartments, but there are a lot of people that are that have been kind of talking at the peripheries a lot about tiny homes, smaller home developments. I think we're going to see some more of those types of developments as well. Yeah, I think those are some of the areas that I see will probably grow. Yeah.
Does the traction of Thursday's group include, town stakeholders like yourself who have a vested interest in those things like housing? Okay, great.
Yes.
Great.
Yeah.
Who else is a champion of housing in Fairfield? Is there anyone in particular?
Well, I think Martin Brett. Yeah. Martin Brett is a local developer who, if you just north of campus, just past the trailer park area and some of those other large new homes, and it borders campus, has developed 150 units in the last 10 years. They're all Maharishi Vastu homes, and anything from single family to triplexes, duplexes, things like that. So he's really been a successful developer and just has tapped a great market. Do you know Martin?
Very well.
Okay.
Very well. I don't know if you know about the Vastu Development Fund concept that he kind of put together. I think maybe sent an email to you last summer about it.
Yes.
Definitely want you to be involved in that.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I definitely will be.
Great.
Martin and I met a couple of weeks ago, so I didn't know how busy he is.
He's a little bit ill.
Yeah, we look forward to that. And I don't know whether you've heard too, on campus, if on the east end of the trailer park, there were, I think, 6 or 8 trailers that were taken out of there, and there were 2 buildings that were built, and there were apartment buildings that had 3 different units. That is basically the model for replacing the whole park. And there's one businessman who is a great benefactor. He was the sponsor of the Invincible America course, coherence creating course from 2006 to about 2012. And he's working with 3 young businesses right now that could go into very large IPOs. And if they do, he will have the funds to basically do the whole project at once. So that would be, so replacing those and getting that higher quality housing on campus is a big part of it as well. There's been a lot of renovation that's going on campus for faculty housing and student dorms and things over the last decade as well. So that commitment is still there to keep doing that too. Anyone else? Yes.
I was going to ask, so what are the biggest sustainability initiatives and economic development initiatives that are going to be coming in like the next year?
That's a good question. What's on the table right now? Oh, okay. So if you've gone north on Highway 1 and you've taken the road towards the airport, it's Airport Road. So the entrance to the airport would be on your right, on your north. And then just to your south, there's about 40 acres of farm ground. That is going to be a large solar array. It's going to be, how many megawatt? I think it's going to be a 3 megawatt array. And it's going to produce enough electricity to power all of the city's use of electricity. Meaning our own buildings and use of electricity. It's going to be a great project. So, you know, when you take something like that and the university's array and some of the others that you've seen around town, the large arrays, you know, again, that puts us on the map. The other thing that's underway right now is a wind project. So generally, all of the wind projects in Iowa are in northern Iowa. They're all north of 80. And that at one time was because of wind speeds. But the efficiency of the turbines right now has made it such that they can be developed down in this part of the state as well. So there's going to be a 40, I believe it's a 40 megawatt project. It'll probably be 60 to 70 turbines, and they'll be, you'll be able to see them. They'll be north of Vedic City, will be the most southerly part, but they'll go up into the edges of the county and also touching 2 other counties. That project is probably slated for 2028. And that's not necessarily directly going to impact us in terms of energy, but it adds to the state's overall wind energy. Right now, Iowa is second behind Texas for the most wind production. Yeah. So those are the two big ones that are coming up.
And so those are like more so sustainability. Is there also other economic development initiatives underway?
So housing, we're working on a housing development. That's kind of the big one at this point. We're going to be doing some more work in our downtown. We're going to try and kind of beautify it a little bit more, work with some of the property owners, get some new ownership, attract some new retail businesses in the downtown. That's going to be a big focus of ours as well. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. We're also, you know, the organization is kind of designed to be reactive also.
Mm-hmm.
So we have some proactive projects, but if anything comes along that we can jump on, we'll do that as well. You know, we're pretty excited about those things.
Awesome. I wanted to say that we're planning a sustainability conference here at the university in June, and if you'd be willing to be a part of that, I think we would really
Sure.
like to have you for
With
that.
dates.
We still didn't decide on dates
Okay.
yet. It's probably this week or next week is going to be
Okay.
decided.
I know I'm going to be out of town. It's like June 7th to 10th or something, but
Okay.
if it's the middle of the month, the Board of Trustees usually meets at the end of the 3rd week of June, so mid-June would probably be a good time.
Okay, I'll let them know that.
Works, yeah.
All right, well, thank you guys so much.
Thanks, my pleasure.
So his leadership continues. We thought he was retired after 18 years, but he couldn't stay out of office.
Yeah.
And the other thing that he and I have in common, we're both Knicks fans. So we talked about
New York Knicks.
the old days of the New York Knicks. So. And my brother-in-law lives in Roswell.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
Yeah, that was my dad was born. I've got some business cards there if anybody'd like to take one of those. But
All right.
nice to meet you all.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for being students of MIU. We're just really precious to to us who've been here for so many years and just want to see this institution grow and reflect that value of Maharshi and his knowledge. And I'm always the most impressive point for me is graduation. When somebody's gotten to that point of graduating from this institution, they're changed. You can just see it, and it's really, really heartwarming. So, best of luck with everything.
Best of luck on.
Okay.
All right, take
I had a
care.
visitors weekend a couple of years ago, and I think I ended up having a meeting with
Yeah,
them.
yeah, sure.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
All right, so let's do our meditation. Business cards are going fast. Gary's coming up. He's getting up.
Okay,